Hello, my name is Alejandro Salcedo, and this is Burning It Down, Conversations with People of Color in Theater. And today we have Demario Jones with us. Ooh, everybody clap. Everybody clap. Hold on. Okay, so this is kind of inspired by, well, not kind of inspired, fully inspired by the video Broadway is Racist by Griffin Matthews. You can follow him on Instagram. Probably everyone's already seen it. How did you feel when you saw that video, Demario?
Um, very, how do I say it? I was shocked, but I wasn't shocked. Um, I'm very much aware that Broadway and theater as a whole still has a lot of racist tendencies, and we have a lot to work on. I did think that, I guess I wanted to think that we had made more strides than we actually have. So, like, hearing a lot of things he said, it was heartbreaking, but again, I kind of didn't like, I mean, what am I saying? Wow. Uh, it was heartbreaking, but I wasn't surprised by it.
Were you in any way surprised that he like spoke out about it, or did it feel right in like the situation we are in right now?
Um, it definitely was right with the situation we're in right now. I think it was very courageous of him, um, because doing something like that can be considered very detrimental to your career, as a lot of people get blacklisted or have problems with getting cast again just because they've spoken their truth. So, um, definitely think it was very much needed to be said and relevant right now. Yeah, but yeah.
Man, that makes a lot of sense. That's okay. So I wanted to get like a little bit of like an introduction into how you went into theater because I don't even think I've asked you this before. So like, when did
Okay.
you like go into like start it, and when did you like decide that you wanted to do it, like all that kind of stuff? Give me the rundown.
Okay, I will try and speed through it.
You have to speed through. We got time.
Okay, I started doing like the school plays at my elementary school, and we did one like every other year. So I did the Jungle Book my third grade year, and then fifth grade year we did Beauty and the Beast. Um, I really enjoyed that. It's actually funny that what we're talking about now with like racism and things of that nature. I went to a school that was in a predominantly black neighborhood, but they had like it was called PACE. They had like this program that brought in like gifted and talented students, um, from like different neighborhoods. So we had a lot of people that came from wealth at my school who necessarily, will say this, weren't necessarily the most talented, but they always got the lead roles because their parents funded everything. So I've been dealing with that since I was a kid before I even really got into theater. But yeah, I did those. And then I went to middle school. Um, Sixth grade, I didn't do theater. I thought I was going to do sports, which, if you know me, that's actually really funny because I don't do anything now. But yeah, so I didn't do it sixth grade. Saw the play because everyone like had to go see the play like at school, and I was like, dang, like this was really good. Like I miss doing this type of stuff. So I was like, okay, I want to try it. Got back into theater seventh grade. Um, did some of the shows. We did Oklahoma. I was Andrew Carnes. Uh, yeah, did that. And then I moved. Oh, before that, I went to New York on a theater trip. And that was the first time I'd ever left and went super far away, was in an airplane, all that. And I got to see Billy Elliot, and we got to like do a talk back with the cast. So it was like kids my age doing it. And then Mary Poppins, and then How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying with Daniel Radcliffe. So I saw those and I was like, oh, this is like really awesome. I want to like do this. So yeah, I was really more focused on just being an actor and doing theater at that point. I thought I was going to be a Disney Channel kid. Yeah, we won't talk about it.
The Disney Channel was popular. That makes sense.
Yeah, it was, and so I really was into acting. Moved from my hometown in East Texas to Austin. Uh, did theater still. Got into choir. Found out I could actually sing because I didn't really realize I sang. Um, yeah, and then throughout high school, I just kept performing and doing choir and theater and shows. And then I just realized that performing is what I really wanted to do. So, yeah. And then did a lot of other craziness. And now I'm finally back in school and going to school to get my BFA in musical theater.
Woo.
So, yeah.
What was like the big like first show that you watched was that was like, this is what I want to do, like professionally wise? Because I know not everybody has like access to like a touring company and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. The show that, I mean, I was already wanting to do it professionally, but the show that I saw that really changed the game where I was like, okay, like no, like I'm in the right career field. I'm doing what I want to do. I was fortunate enough to see the Color Purple revival closing night,
Ooh.
and that was the best performance I've ever seen. It was just phenomenal, and that was when I really saw people that looked like me on stage doing something so moving and storytelling and doing all the things that I've dreamed of doing. And that was when I really was like, okay, yeah. And I think I was 18, 19 when I saw it. Was one of those. But yeah, it was amazing. Cynthia Riva, all of them were incredible. So yeah.
Yeah, if everyone hasn't watched that video, they should go watch that video. I watch that video all
Yes.
the time. It's good. Oh, another thing, because I want to like talk about like news articles that are like this week. So this week we found out that the Nederlanders donate to Trump, and
Mm-hmm.
those were the story in those theaters. Stories like Rent, Hamilton, On Your Feet, all those things are happening. So you think you're supporting your people of color and you think you're supporting their rights, but you're actually supporting Trump. And like Karen Olivo and a bunch of people like speaking out, be like, research, then go watch. Do you think like this show me the receipt thing doesn't really matter because white people have to run the theater no matter what, or they're the ones in charge right now?
Um, I don't personally think that, like, yes, they do run theater, but I think it's time for that to stop happening. I think it's time for there to be a shift and actually have people of color in leadership roles, more people of color producing things of that nature. Um, I think that people in power who are usually white people in theater should, like, they try and act like they're supportive because they're like, oh well, I'm funding this story, this and that, but then they're still like supporting like Trump and things of that nature. I think what's going to start to happen and what's going to be like part of the change is going to be people of color going to stop putting up with it, and then when they realize that they're losing their money, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, for a lot of people producing, it's not about the story, it's about how much they're going to get back from it money wise. That when they start losing money, that's when people are going to start listening. I don't know if I answered your question at all.
I think you did.
Okay.
I think you did. Yeah, because it's just, it's crazy to think, because it's all money. It's all money, so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And the people that pay money are the older white people from up and from the audience. That's usually who it is because the tickets are so expensive and so everything. So they don't
Mm-hmm.
feel the need to add diverse theater on Broadway and in their season because they're like, no, we don't need that. We have white people and they're coming to go watch white people's stories, and we're gonna keep doing the classics and we're gonna keep doing the golden age musicals because this is what sells money right now, or what sells tickets right now. And so what they tend to do is be like, this is a diversity slot. We're going to give you one show where you can do whatever you want. Or we're going to show that we support, but then throughout the rest of the season, they're like, but we're going to whitewash everything else.
Have you noticed something I noticed years ago, that it goes back to what you're saying, how they're like, here's the slot for a POC show, and then everything else is going to be white. Have you noticed that shows like The Color Purple, Miss Saigon, all at once on this island, they usually only run for like a 15-month contract. But then shows like Hello Dolly, all these other like golden age shows that cater to the white majority, they like have an open-ended contract and they run and run. But I noticed a trend that most shows like The Color Purple, Once, Miss Saigon, they all start at like the end of the year, and then they run up until like that next January after Tony season. And it always closes the first week of January. But also another big issue I've been noticing is that producers and donors and directors, all that, they're afraid to stand up for what's right because they don't want to upset people who are giving them money for their shows, because they're like, well, if I put up this queer story or this story about POCs or, you know, things of that nature, we're going to lose our older audience who may not support those issues. And I think it's personally ridiculous that we're still letting that stop you from letting people fully like live and like tell their stories, because you're afraid that you're going to lose donors because you're doing the right thing. But you want Black and brown bodies on your stage telling these stories and performing at your galas and doing all this stuff, but then you secretly behind our backs aren't actually supporting us because you're afraid of what some older person's going to say or think.
Well, that's why I think why this is happening now, because everything's shut down. So it literally does not matter. Like well, it matters obviously, but like your next season can be pretty much whatever you want it to be. Now is the time to change what you want to give to people. And then especially right now, because some theaters are opening back up, which is crazy. I don't know how that's happening, because acting is dangerous. But like even like the older audience that is scared to go out and who is more susceptible to COVID and more susceptible to things like that, they're not the ones who are going to be going out to watch theater right now.
Right.
You have time right now to ask for rights, to ask for especially streaming rights, because even streaming, the younger people know how to stream. Older people probably do not know how to click a link and donate or whatever and buy a ticket, then visit the link and open it back. Probably nobody knows how to do that. So the time is now to be like, these are the stories we want to tell. Action can be done quick instead of taking a week to say that you stand with Black people. Right.
And going back on what you were saying with like the young people are the ones that are streaming and doing things like that. People need to understand that times have changed and the audience of theater is young people, and it's a diverse group of people. The only reason why you aren't seeing this, I guess, in the numbers of like statistics of people coming to see shows is because we can't afford to come and see shows. We can't afford Broadway tickets unless it's lottery or a gift. And then people who don't live near big theaters, even if we can afford or save money for the $200 plus ticket for the show, we still have to figure out getting there, flights, hotels, things of that nature. So it's like we can't afford to see the things that we want to be a part of.
And the thing is, most people aren't trying. They don't even try to get us to the theater. Like some lotteries are going up, like Hamilton lottery goes up, it's exciting or whatever. But most likely it's because tickets are hard to get. It's not necessarily to be like, let's get, and most of the people applying for that are probably white people. I hope white people aren't winning because the story is about us. The story, diverse people telling the story of America. You know what I mean? So it'd be great to be like, and they do like the Hamilton education series where they bring people in and do stuff. I think more people need to do that because you don't just have to teach people about specific stories having to do with them. You can invite people to theater always. Theater is always going to change people, no matter what. Even if it's just to laugh for the moment or to like, it's a sad classic drama or whatever. You need to bring different people in so different people can get excited about theater, and then it just keeps going up the chain.
Right.
Because otherwise, you lose the whole era of people because we're like, we just keep getting shut down.
Yeah.
What do we?
Yeah, and make theater, all theater, more accessible for people of color. I see trends of shows that usually have people of color in it where they might have a night where they had half off tickets or they gave away free tickets for people of color, things like that. But yes, that's important because we want to see people like us on the stage doing things, but also it's just as important for us to see the golden age traditional shows so we know more about that and are exposed to that and know that we can do that as well, because in actuality, yes, it's great to see people of color telling people of color stories on stage, but we lived that already. So it's not like that's something new to us seeing it. It's great because we're seeing people look like us tell our stories, but we're living that story every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has to do with the fact that a majority, not all, but a majority of shows written for POCs are not even written by people of color. They're written by white people who are giving their perspective of someone's life that they have never lived or understand. But, and I'm not, and like, hey, a lot of those shows are some of my favorite musicals, I will say, but it's really getting to the point now where I'm like, okay, but when are shows going to start actually getting the attention that are about people of color, or not even necessarily about people of color, they're just about people, but they're told from a different perspective instead of just constantly white men.
Exactly. And I feel like before Corona, we were slowly getting there, super slow. Because they did like Little Shop with George Salazar and MJ Rodriguez, and I was like, yes, this is iconic. This is great. And Amber Riley. And I was like, yeah, this is, they're talking about being poor. They're talking about being like in a dump. They're talking about being like in hard situations to live in. That's what people of color live in. They know those situations. They know those things. So like looking at white people and that kind of stuff, I was like, do you really know what that's like? Or like, does this kind of character make sense? But then when they brought in that fresh take, I was like, this makes so much sense. This makes so much sense. And I feel like a lot of plays can make so much sense if they decided to look past like, what we're going to start with is white people.
Yeah, I agree. But even going with like shows like that, even when people are like, oh, look at us, we're being inclusive, we're colorblind casting this, blah, blah, blah. Most times those stories are still tropes in the sense of like, we're poor, we're this or that, instead of it just being a show of substance about someone who's doing well for themselves. They still have a hard time putting people of color in those shows though.
Have you never seen Black Annie?
The movie?
Yeah.
No, I have actually never seen it.
I was like, Daddy Warbucks is black and he's rich. So I don't think you've done your research.
But right, and then that's the thing. When we have this argument, like, okay, yes, y'all have done this or that. They're like, okay, but we did this. I'm like, it's not about you trying to be like, hey, pick me, choose me. I put a black person in this. That shouldn't be what you're selling to me. You shouldn't be having to say,
cares.
Right, like, okay, that's great. You did something that you should not be getting a pat on the back for, because what you did should have already been happening. Just because you've done it once doesn't mean that you're in the clear. Like, that's not how it works. And that's the same thing with people trying to be like, we love black people or people of color, we're not racist, we did so and so and we had black people in our show. And I'm like, yeah, you had one person of color in your ensemble and you only did that so you wouldn't have heat on you.
And then same thing with just going like the bigger thing, like white people accepting that they're racist, and pretty much every other person of color that is not black accepting that they have prejudices inside of them, because we all want to fit into the white box. We all want to see each other with white people. Oh, even if you accept that you're racist, I don't care. Don't tell me I don't care.
Yeah,
it's factual. You don't need to tell me.
Yeah.
I knew that about you.
Yeah. And to all the white people out there in theater supporters, allies, whatever you fall under, stop telling people of color that they should feel lucky because right now being a person of color is in, because the only show that is really casting people of color only is Hamilton, and that's one show to like the trillions of other shows that are casting. So stop telling people that because you're like upset because you can't get cast in one show, when all the other shows that are still casting people and currently running are still rarely casting people of color.
They're all still classics. Classics will not go, as long as those old white people are alive, classics will never go out of style. And even like trying to non-traditionally cast, because that's what non-white casting is now, to non-traditionally cast this role.
Exactly.
To not cast them that way, and they go, oh, well, they're taking a role away from me. No, they literally never said the role was white. They never said it had to be white.
And that's privilege, that you are saying someone is taking a role from you, because nothing on the casting breakdown for those shows, unless they are centered around issues that only pertain to white people, it doesn't matter. Majority of these shows that are traditional, aka white, are only like that because y'all won't let people of color take on these roles. And like there's really nothing out there unless it's like a show that has to do with race, like Parade or something, where obviously I couldn't play Leo Frank or like a Jewish man because I would be cast as the funny talking, fresh out of slavery black character in that show. Why can't people of color be cast in these? And that's where I'm like, it's so obvious that it's prejudice and racism and privilege behind it, because it's like you're telling someone, oh, well, they're taking a role away from a white person, but we're not taking a role that's not, it's not yours, it's just a role. And if you think about it, you still have all these other shows casting you specifically. If the season doesn't have In the Heights or Dreamgirls or something of that nature in it, most times we're not being cast. And if we are, it's just ensemble.
The audacity to be like, these are our roles, when you have been taking those roles from us. If you really want to think about it, you've been taking roles from us, because we don't get to be put into the same room. We don't get to be put into the same box. We're different people. We look different than you. So we don't even get the opportunity to get them.
Right. And theater's supposed to be have this whole saying of suspend your disbelief. But when it comes to color, we for some reason y'all can't do that. But to do Wicked and have people flying and being witches, y'all are okay with that, which is a whole nother thing. Being green, but not having.
It's about her being green. So I'm sorry, that was racist.
It doesn't make sense. And at this point, people that try and defend those things, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. You are racist. And if you aren't racist, which I feel like you are, you're very privileged. You're very privileged and you're blind, and you don't, at this point, you don't want to see the issue because it's right there in front of you time and time again. You're choosing to not pay attention to it because I think some people who are still holding on to that in the industry, they think that by relinquishing their power and letting people of color actually be in the driver's seat, or not even driver's seat, but just be on the same plane as them, they're going to start losing and not benefiting how they have always done. And that's what I think a lot of people's issue is. They don't want to be treated equally. They're so used to having everything handed to them and just getting whatever, that if we finally made that switch and actually put everyone on the same playing field, that they're going to not get what they want anymore.
Oh yeah, because they're scared that we're better than them. Because we technically are. We have to be. We have to be in order to be seen as equals. We have to be better than them, or else no one even looks at you because you're like, you're different. You're going to make the show weird. Like as a course.
Exactly. Exactly. And we have to have two different sides to us. We have to know all of our POC repertoire that we have for our shows that only cast us, but then we also have to have a whole set of repertoire for traditional white shows as well. And then getting an education in theater, we don't learn about POC stuff. We are only taught about that. So we have to educate ourselves on plays and musicals and things that are written by people like us, because they don't care to teach us that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we have to be multifaceted and know so much just to be even close to them. And even with all of that knowledge and training and things that we have to do, we still aren't even being on the same level as them. We're here and they're there. And now even for us to move up.
Talent. No, flip it for talent. Well, I won't say that for everybody. Some people of color are bad. We know that. That's just facts. But it's okay.
But no, it's like, it's very disheartening to have people say like how they support you or they care about you or this and that and the third, but they aren't willing to make sacrifices how we've always had to sacrifice just to level the playing field.
No, even they think even accepting that they're racist or that they've been giving into this society for so long and not saying anything, they think that's an attack against them, which like it kind of is. It kind of is, but that's the world that they were born into, and you have to. We had to look into the world and be like, okay, this is where we live. So why shouldn't they?
Right. And it's not even necessarily that it's an attack against them. We're just telling them the truth. And because they have the privilege to ignore the fact, they get offended that they're being discriminated against or being felt differently. And I'm like, well, that's how we live every single day. You're uncomfortable because we're calling you out on stuff. But imagine that's how we live 24/7. And I'm glad that so many people are speaking up now, even myself and you and people like posting things like this, because I'm not gonna lie, for me personally, I felt like I've always tried to be complicit and just go along with things. I might complain to other people of color about what's happening, but we're afraid to say anything because we're scared that casting directors, people we've worked with, aren't gonna want to hire us because we spoke the truth. And I had to tell myself, if you aren't going to hire me for my talent and what I bring to the table because I called you out or called other people out on past things, then I shouldn't work with you in the first place, because clearly you don't care about me and giving me the platform to share my experiences and try and actually change. You only care about using me as revenue for you. We feel like we can't even say those things because we're going to come across as aggressive, or that we're difficult to work with, or we're too sensitive. But in actuality, they're the ones that are too sensitive because they don't want to hear us be like, hey, what you said was a little offensive to me. And yeah, like you're saying, I have had so many people have microaggressions towards me or say things that maybe in their mind it wasn't racist or they didn't mean to say it, but because they're so privileged and ignorant to things that they just say whatever because they know there's no repercussion for it. But if we say something, then it's an issue.
Exactly. I have something in my eye. I'm sorry. There. Oh, no, it's on my nose. Oh. This has been a really good conversation. I really wanted to get like thoughts on like college age people, because what I really see everywhere is like older people talking about how their experience has changed, and so it makes it seem like so much progress has been made. Do you know what I mean? It makes it seem like everything's happening and it was like baby steps. I'm like, I think we're tired of baby steps.
Yeah, we're tired of it. We're very tired of baby steps. Y'all have had all this time of racism and prejudice to basically treat us however you wanted to. And it's kind of frustrating when people are like, okay, baby steps, oh, give us some time. I'm like, but we've given y'all years and years of time. At this point, no, like things need to start happening now, because I can only imagine how long y'all have been saying years past, give us time. And clearly baby steps aren't doing enough at this point.
And like Hamilton wasn't that long ago. And we haven't gone that far from Hamilton.
That's like the only show that, and then I guess kind of SpongeBob, but even then, not really. And the only reason still why that show was so diverse is because the underlying message was talking about diversity and like different things that divide people. So still, I don't give that a pass. I mean, yes, claps for y'all, but all these other shows that are just coming out or reviving where it does not matter, what are y'all waiting on?
No, I think the point right now is just no more claps. You don't.
Yeah, and you're right.
You don't get claps.
Take them back.
You literally don't. You literally do not get claps.
You don't get claps for doing the bare minimum.
That's why I really like Griffin Matthews' video where he was just like, this is it, point blank period. You think we're disconnected from this racism outside of the world because we're theater people? No, it's literally there. We're stopped right now, and we need to burn it down. And that's just point blank period. Oh my God. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God. I can't wait to see what we do. It's going to be a whole different world when we come back. I know it. We're going to make it.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
That's if we speak out and aren't afraid, because it really takes us to lead the way. So.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.